being the fire chief, in case you get called out, we can do it. Have you jump in, and then we'll come back to this.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
That's fine. I'm here for all of them, so it doesn't
Well,
matter.
I know, and so am I, but I just, when something was going off, and I didn't know if he had to leave, and that's my luck. He'll just start going and say, sorry, I gotta go, so,
I'm going to do that anyway.
okay.
I can't get this thing going, we have to cooperate.
Okay, so it's on your personal turbine generator. Can't take it.
Oh, gotcha.
No, we can't.
Okay, we're good.
You're light years ahead of me.
So I was asked to put together a program for this evening regarding the Mystic 811 system, just to kind of shed some light on what it's all about and why we have to use it, so. There's a few slides here. Oh, we have to make some adjustments. I don't work perfect, I'll mind that. There we go. So I laid out just a few objectives for tonight, and what is Mystic, who needs to call, why do I need to call, just a few of the things to kind of hopefully answer some questions for people that aren't familiar with how the system works. The Mystic is a statewide one-call notification system, and it was actually started in 1970 by 5 of the big players back then. Consumers, Detroit Edison, GE, Michigan Bell, and Michigan Consolidated Gas, they were pretty much fed up with their underground utilities getting hit. So they put something together for that to kind of help protect their utilities. With the enactment of Public Act 53 of 1974, the state legislature, they approved it for a statewide one-call system. And in 76, they actually expanded it to the UP. So been around for a while. They said 2013 was the latest change for Mystic, and they went to Public Act 174. And it added definitions and enforcements as key parts of what was going on with everything, and the repercussions if you didn't use the system and you did hit something. We had a gentleman the other night that was putting in a fence with a power auger, and he was hand digging behind his house, and he thought he found a root. So he grabbed his axe, cut a gas line. Yeah, so even if you're hand digging, it's highly recommended that you use the free system. So,
I think there's a better word than digging, and it's if you are disturbing the earth. And I say that because, again, my son was pulling out some bushes, was not digging, per se, but pulling them out. A gas line had grown in that, and so when we're talking about misdig, also think of it as if you're going to disturb the earth,
sure.
not just digging a hole.
Right, and that's what they refer to with the excavation and everything. Yeah, that makes perfect sense because you don't know how long that's been there or what has grown into it. So who needs to call Mystic? Pretty much anyone who plans on excavations with digging equipment is required by law to call Mystic. And it includes, but it's not limited to the digger derricks, backhoes, trenchers, power augers, boring machines. Like Perry said, anytime you're going to disturb it, had these folks called into Mystic, even before they used the power auger for their fence, they would have known that that gas line was 2 feet away from it. Well, less than 2 feet from the meter where they hit it, so they would have known what was there and it wasn't. But even if you are hand digging, it's recommended that you call. And here's the thing that a lot of the contractors didn't understand for a long time. But if more than one contractor is excavating, each contractor has to call in their own Mystic. So if your company is here digging and we want to put power lines in next to you, we can't work off your Mystic. Because for one, it could be mismarked. So if you get a different guy out there running the locator, it might actually be marked a little bit more accurate or less accurate for that matter. But each contractor has to call in their own Mystic. We ran into that problem with some area around here real close to all of us where it's painted about to locate anyway. But they were all trying to work off each other's Mystics, and then they actually hit something. And that's not why the Mystic was called in. It wasn't called in for that particular scope of work. So they ended up getting fined for things like that. So if the person doing the digging neglects to call Mystic, they can and normally will be charged for any expenses incurred by the utility for response and repair. And most of the time, this this stuff happens after hours, so it's not gonna be cheap to get anybody there to fix a gas line or an electric or even phone for that matter. And now with so much fiber being underground, I mean, we were told that if we cut a fiber line that was even crossing the road, it wasn't even underground, it was a minimum of $3,000 to have the tech come out and fix it. So, and that was north of town where we talked about, it was for the school's fiber. So once the utility is marked with flags in paint, the person doing the digging must hand expose the utility to verify its location. So you've got 48 inches on either side of that mark that you have to hand dig around and expose it. If you're gonna be that close, you have to expose that utility, whatever's there. And the new developments, I know Ryan's gonna talk a little bit when he gets into his, but the new developments, everything is going in the right of way, and a lot of it's actually going in the same trenches now with the developments that we're doing, with the exception probably of gas. So I know that cable and fiber and everything, they're trying to get in there right with us when we do it. So, we've got a trench open anyway. So,
And the point of hand exposing is just to make sure that it's marked correctly,
correct.
because it might be 2 feet off.
Yep. Yep. So, and it's happened. You know, I mean, the locator is just a piece of equipment, but. So, one of the new things that they started within the last couple of years with the 811 system, there was an 800 number that you used to call, and now you can get on mystic.org and you can do an e-locate ticket, which we use that quite frequently for just doing one address. That's all you can use it for. It can't be an emergency misdig, it can't be a short misdig, and it can't be multiple addresses. You can get on there and you can do an e-locate. Once I type in our phone number, when I do the e-locate, I hit look up phone number, and it fills in like 2/3 of the information for us because we're a participating utility. So it really makes it nice and it expedites things. And then if I put Ryan as the field contact, he will get a text message when the ticket is put through. So sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes 3 hours. But he'll get a message, or I'll get a message from the field contact. We'll get a text message saying, you've got a missed ticket for this area. So that way at least he knows that when he asks me to put the ticket in, he knows that I actually did it. And then he'll know 3 days from noon, that's clear, he's gonna be able to do his job. The guys can start setting goals or whatever they need to do, so. Every ticket is given a number. That number is for reference for your positive response, which we'll get in the next, because everybody's required to participate in the positive response now. So if I'm not here, Ryan wants to know if a ticket's cleared and everything's good, he can go to the Mystic system, he can enter that ticket number, and he can see, it'll list like 16 different things on there of who responded and what they responded with. Was it no conflict, was it marked, do they need more information? So if he knows something there and it's not marked, and he goes in there and it says no conflict, he knows that we need to be calling somebody because that's a problem. And we just recently had that over on Jackson and Grand River, right? Where they didn't mark the gas or the phone or something. So some utilities may not supply service in the area, the work that's being done. What they do with that is everybody has to grid off their system. So we're in overlap with consumers, not only with our electric, but just, you get out north of town just a little bit, going up Alden Nash. We have our electric out here, they have their electric out there, so we're all covered in the same grid. But once you get past Virginia's, we don't get mystics for that. We don't get mystics for Eastgate, because when Jeff Mullins was here, we went through and we regridded everything. It took us out of the equation completely, so we don't get a lot of access tickets. So, and that's something that you kind of try to look at every couple of years, just to make sure that your gridding is the right way you need it, so you're not getting a lot of unnecessary tickets.
Ron, who responds to a mistake call here from Light Power? Typically you?
9 times out of 10, it's me. Yep.
And how many calls are we getting on an average week or month, would you say, Ron?
It varies quite a bit. This is the busy time of year. Actually, well, springtime is usually a little bit busier because now the contractors are getting out, the load limits are off. So, but we're probably averaging 20 to 30 a week, just for our gridded area. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go locate. It just means that it's something that we have to respond to because it's in our gridded area. So if we know that it's overhead, we don't have to go. We just get in and clear it. However, the after hours, when we get an emergency misting after hours, the text message comes to myself, Ryan, and Mark. And I can pretty much, not to toot my own horn, but I can pretty much look at the address, send you guys a message and say, don't worry about it, I'll clear it. Or I know where this is, I'll grab the locator real quick. It just makes sense to be able to help those guys up with that so they don't have to mess with me because I do so many listings in a week anyway. So probably 20 to 30 a week easily, is probably a safe bet. Most tickets take 3 business days to clear, and they're good for 21 days. Some cases they can be extended, so if you know you're working on a big project like Harvest Meadows or something up there, you can get an extension on your mist day, so you don't have to continuously call it in. I wish some more of the other companies around here would do that, because it's not uncommon to go 4 or 5 times to one location, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it.
So what, I'm gonna continue.
No, but
So what, once you call that in, how soon do they have to respond?
if it's an emergency misting,
No, just regular missed date,
they
because
just
when I,
have to respond within 3 days.
okay, so has that changed or anything? Because when I called Miss Dig to do the fence up at the cemetery, I was told by Miss Dig that it would be at least a week before they'd get to me.
Now, the law is 3 days. It's 3 business days. So Saturday and Sunday don't count as part of the 3 days. So like, I got some mistakes that came in this morning, and being as it's Wednesday already, they don't clear till Monday. So Saturday and Sunday do not count. But no, the law is that mistig is 3 days.
Okay,
Now, with that being said, there's a company that you may not see them in 3 days, you may not see them in 5. But us, you'll typically see us either the same day or the next day, or at least get a response out of it. You know, we try to stay right on top of it, because we don't know what the next hour is going to bring in our day. So I try to get them done as quickly as possible. I know when I'm off for vacation or whatever, Ryan gets them all emailed to him, and he gets right on top of them. So yeah, you've got 3 days to respond, and then it becomes a problem. And then it goes into a different file on your system, and then you start slapping the fines and different things. So, and if it's past the 3 days and you have a hit, it's on you. You know, so if we don't locate and it's 4 days and they hit our electric, it's on us. It's not on them. We didn't do our due diligence to get it taken care of. So.
Don't mean to interject, Ron, but the MMEA sent a recent media news update. One of the articles spoke to the fact that there's like tens of thousands of mistakes that people actually just ignore and don't go locate, and how the state's going to start ramping up penalties and fines, because we've had it, I think, right here on Broadway, where
Yeah.
we hit, was it AT&T?
Was that Broadway we did that? Oh, out here.
For
Yeah.
Larkins.
Yeah.
I think, it wasn't Mark, we hit it.
Comcast.
Comcast, I don't know, I mean, one of the two. I mean,
Yep.
we've had that happen numerous instances in the last 3 years since Ryan and I have been in our positions.
Yeah, there's been a lot of hits throughout the state, and they're getting pretty tough on those.
I figured digging, I didn't wait for them. I figured digging in the cemetery would.
If you haven't seen it, probably pretty safe. I don't think you're gonna find any phone lines out there. So who's required to participate? All utilities are required by law to participate, and each utility pays an annual fee determined by the size of the area they cover. With us, it's about $537. Give or take it, you know, that could increase now if we're expanding out a little bit further, but that's our normal price. I think it got me those numbers a long time. The colors, what are the colors actually for? Pretty self-explanatory with those. You'll see a lot of people will put the white proposed flags out. At least Consumers is really good about that. Or if Ryan knows, I think you did that down at the new bridge.
Yeah.
Put some white flags out so that everybody can see our proposed, where the trench was going to be for what the project that we had going. The bad part about it is a lot of times when you look at some of these yards, white flags are used for marking underground dog fence too. So they're not really going to take that electric in a square in the yard. They could. So, and is there a cost to me as a homeowner? A lot of people worry about that. No, it's free. I mean, only the utilities pay. You have to pay your membership fee to be part of it. But we as homeowners, there's no charge to us. So why would you not use something that's free?
So who's actually coming out and doing the even?
Out here, for our electric utility, it's us. We have our own locator. We do all of our own locating. For Consumers, Comcast, AT&T, it's a company called USIC. They contract with them. It used to be SMP, and before, I don't remember who it was before that. There's been a handful since we've been out here doing these, but best of my knowledge, we've always done our own. I think we're on locator number 3 now, since I came here 20 years ago, so we're on our 3rd one already. Because technology changes and it just gets a little bit better, and there's more things you can get. So, but out here it's USIC. So typically, this is up at Harvest Meadows, this is what one of our mistigs is gonna look like. It's really difficult sometimes because right now we have empty conduits in those pictures. So we had to do it off of where the guys had the trench opened up. And this was actually from phase one. So we kind of marked where the guys had it, where the dirt was disturbed. When they get done, they started backfilling. They went around and started sticking flags in, which is a really good practice because then we can photograph, not even know how many photographs we have, all that stuff now. We take a lot, Brian and I got a file going on all of that stuff. Tom and I had some files going when he was here. That's the locator that we use. The black A-frame looking thing, that's for finding faults in the wire. So if there's a break somewhere, you typically can use that to get it connected to your box there on the left. And we should be able to find that fault. And if not, we can get a hold, I think Portland's got a thumper that they can bring out if we need it. So, it's kind of cool. I mean, if you've never done it and it's something you've never seen, it's pretty cool to do because it's just amazing what you can do. It's kind of like playing with a metal detector almost. So, just some milestones that they had. The busiest months usually are April, May, and June. And the average number of tickets taken per day in the summer is over 4,200. So, yeah, between 77 and 79, the service expanded to include a statewide overhead electric line assistance program. So if people are going to be running excavating equipment around our overhead lines, they can contact us and make arrangements if need be for us to come and protect them and our lines. So that's all part of the e-locate system. That's questions that they specifically ask in there now. So it makes it really nice. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for emergency mistigs and non-emergency requests. They can still put them in, but they're not going to get anybody to respond to them unless it's an absolute emergency. And that has to be, so if we have a broken pole, car accident or whatever, snaps off a pole, we call it an emergency mistig and refer to it as no utilities, which means your house is out of power, we need to get somebody out there to fix it. That's gonna be an emergency, or if there's danger to property or to the public, we can get somebody out there and we can do it within 4 hours. They're not as strict as what they should be on the emergency mistigs. They're a little lax on it sometimes, because you look at some of these and you read it and go, really? Why is that an emergency mistig? So they don't really screen it all that great, but they need to work on that. But you can see in 2013, there was 708,000 tickets. In 2017, that number had increased to 800, almost 873,000 tickets a year. So it gets pretty busy out there. You know, looking at May, almost 104,000 just in May of 2017.
So why did it jump so much in 2017?
Just a lot of building going on, the economy turned around, there's a lot more houses being built, a lot more developments going in, new businesses, so.
I speculate, they're putting so much more underground nowadays
Well,
too,
that's
so the
good.
more that's underground, the more tickets naturally, you know, as we put things underground, we're gonna have more and more tickets.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
But just those county, I just looking there, I think 80,000 for the first 4 years, and all of a sudden, 100,000.
Jumped up pretty good. There's a lot going on all around us.
Yeah, that's what I'm
too, so, yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what the Mystic system is all about, and that's what we deal with on a daily basis. And, I mean, like I said, if you've never seen one of those things in operation, it's pretty cool. So it's a little niche and a little learning curve to figure it out, but
You ever not find stuff that's actually there? Like, you ever had misfires or something?
yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why you gotta bring that up. Yes, we have. Yep. I mean, you get into, like the trailer park, Key Vista now, as it's called. You get over there and we know the electric's there. And we've all got a really decent grasp of where it runs. But to try to hook onto something and physically locate it and feel 100% confident that you're on it, almost impossible.
Okay.
Because there's so much parking antenna, cable, gas, phone, everything in the ground, and a lot of it's all right together in the same direction, so it's almost impossible to feel 100% secure when you leave there.
It's been quite a few years, but out in front, right on 21, can't remember who was ordering, but they hit a gas line and had to evacuate that whole,
Oh yeah, we evacuated Laurel's of Kent,
had to evacuate that whole side of town.
yeah, took them all out of school buses, out of Laurel's of Kent. Then brought them all back with ambulances.
Is it 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Time flies, but it's back when I was on rescue, we had to cordon off and gas was, it was, 5, 6, 7 hours before they could get it
Yeah,
capped
it was-
off.
And it's happened more than once
Wow.
too.
Just pouring out in the air.
Just like you did
Pouring
that
out.
overnight.
You know, it would have been nice if the gas would have ignited, because at least then you know where the gas is going. But being as it didn't, and it was just a cloud, you had no way to tell where it was gonna go and how it was gonna dissipate. If it's burning, it's better. It's a lot
That's true,
safer.
yeah, because otherwise you never know where it's gonna settle.
It's a lot safer
Yeah.
if it's burning, so, yeah.
We didn't plan it this way, but, I mean, it is our GIS platform, and with our next action item talks about GIS, but this locator can locate when we install underground electric utilities. To how, a couple inches, Ron?
The new, or the Trimble?
Trimble?
Yeah.
So we'll be able to actually have like longitude, latitude coordinates for all of our underground infrastructure down to inches, and the ability to go to that coordinate and mark things. So, anyway, just funny that misdigs and GIS are in the agenda vote tonight, but just another reason why we went to the GIS platform.
Are you going to do an audit, like walk around and put that on an app so you guys can bring it up on your phone and go, bleep, I'm here, and it just maps out where everything's at underground?
That should be part of the Trimble app.
Yes,
We're gonna be
that's
using
something that we're going to do,
Yep.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, we should be able to get the apps on our phones, and the guys will be able to pull up the system right on there.
When that happens, I'd like to see what that looks like.
Me too.
Okay.
So basically, it's like playing Pokemon Go. Yeah.
Yeah, only for big kids.
Yeah. Where is this little invisible thing?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have Ryan's presentation,
Oh, we don't have to do it.
we might as well.
Because it all goes together.
Yeah, it all goes together.
Yes.
Sure
And
it
just
does.
quick before you dig.
Trenching and excavating safety. We do quite a bit of digging. A lot of underground has happened this summer. Should have added up all of the conduit that we put in the ground, so we had a hard number for all of it, but it's a huge amount. I did not do that. I was thinking I should have, but didn't get that done.
It's over tens of thousands of feet of conduit.
It is a bunch, yes.
So just a few miles then.
Most importantly, before you do any digging, just like Ron just mentioned, you need to call in a locate request. And then there's a few basic general trenching and excavating rules. You obviously need to know where all the underground facilities are, hand dig or hydrovac to expose them, that way you don't do any damage if you're anywhere near them. I mean, you have a certain amount of distance where things are marked. If you're outside of that distance, then you're allowed to just go ahead and dig, but when you're within that close distance, you need to verify where things are at so you don't cause any problems. You also need to keep your pile of dirt or the spoil pile at least a minimum of 2 feet from the edge of the trench, just so it doesn't cause any cave-ins. It adds weight to the side of the trench. Could cause a cave-in. You don't want the equipment to be too close. It could cause a cave-in. You just want to be aware of, keep an eye on your trench. Most of the time, especially in a situation like this one, this is out at Harvest Meadows Phase 2, there isn't a need for the guys to get into a trench like this because of the style pipe that we're using. We pull it out on the edge of the ground right there, and then it just kind of gets flopped into the trench all at the same time. So there's multiple different pipes, obviously you can see those in there. There's AT&T's cable, there's Comcast cable in there, because we all put everything as a joint operation, and it works really well. If we do need to get into the trench, we always taper the sides, open the sides of the trench, slope them really well so that there's no threat of cave-in. And then if it has to stay that way overnight, you have to barricade it off and just keep people away from it, and which we didn't have any trouble out there. We were able to just block the road. But you can move to the next slide.
How deep is that?
They were probably right around 36 inches deep.
Okay.
That's typically what we would, 30 to 36 inches is what we normally try to go for above the pipes for elevation, I guess. Cave-ins are the greatest risk. You never know when things are going to cave in, so that's why we always slope the trenches. if you're gonna leave a trench open overnight, we definitely wanna barricade it off, keep public out of it. That is another danger that you can have. Even, I've even seen where small animals have fallen into open trenches and they weren't able to get out till the next day when people come back to work. It's kind of silly, but that has happened. You can go to the next one. And you always wanna protect yourself, when you're gonna be near a trench. You don't wanna get into a trench that's over 4 feet deep. I mean, if it's 5 feet or greater, you're gonna want some sort of a shoring mechanism, whether it's a trench box that you move along with the guys or some sort of equipment that keeps it from caving in. And typically, we always slope the trenches. We normally don't dig much deeper than 36 inches, so there really isn't a huge hazard for us. But if we needed to do any bigger operation, if we had some kind of a job where we had to install a manhole or something like that, we would probably hire it out to a contractor that has the right equipment to do something that's a lot deeper than we have the safety equipment to handle. It's just the way we would go about it. Lots of different types of protective systems. You can, if you're gonna have a really, really deep trench, there's a lot of trench box options. There's engineered systems that can be used, but just to keep it simple, we do just basic trenching around here where we put conduit in most of the time. We do excavate holes that are fairly deep with our digger derrick to set poles, but they're typically only 2 foot in diameter, and you need it to be deep to set the pole in, so there's not really a hazard there. We just, obviously, we know not to go and fall in it. And then, like I mentioned a couple different times, sloping is that's the main safety system that we use when it comes to protecting workers when they're in a trench. If they're gonna be in it and we need some sort of protection, it's gonna be sloping. It's really easy just to taper the sides back and you won't have any problems after that.
There's a, because we had this, I think Ron, before you were here, there's a guideline. How deep do they have to go? Our lines and everything?
They have to be a minimum of 30 inches deep. I think that's what our policy states, is 30 inches.
And are we taking photograph shots of these as we're
Oh yeah.
documenting and everything?
Every underground job that we do, especially out in Harvest Meadows and any of the other ones that we've been doing, we take photos of everything. We have huge amounts of photos on every job. It's just really nice for reference later to look back at it, because you can jog your memory on what was there and where it goes, and helps with locate requests also.
Who's in the trench?
Yeah.
Okay.
OSHA, they require trenches to be inspected every day. I mean, we obviously, if we leave a trench open overnight, we definitely want to go back through and look at it again, make sure everything is proper and it hasn't caved in anywhere, or there's, nothing foreign in there that shouldn't be in there that might have gotten in there overnight.
How deep does a trench have to be considered a trench?
Well, I mean, a trench could be 2 inches deep, it just depends on what you're doing. If you go anything deeper than 4 feet is when you start needing to use safety equipment. Like, if it's deeper than 4 feet, you need to have a ladder within 25 feet of any worker at that point to be able to a safe way out of the trench. If it's deeper than 5 feet, then you have to start using some definite shoring methods or sloping safety measures to be able to protect workers in there.
But like in that picture, that looks like it's a foot or so deep. Is that? But I saw that your text there says has to be inspected every day. So generally, like a 2-inch trench is still up to somebody has to inspect it, or I guess that's what I'm wondering is what.
This trench right here is exactly 30 inches deep. I remember this was quite a while ago. We had to put a new feed into the Huntington Bank because the existing feed was barely underneath of the pavement. Not sure why it was installed that way, but we we had to do this kind of quick because all the, they did all that sidewalk and curb work along Main Street. This was probably 2 years ago, maybe almost 2.5 years ago.
It was right after you started.
It was a while ago, but we took a lot of photos of this job. Down at the very end of the trench, you can see one little piece of concrete that is in there that has, I think it's a sewer line, it's concrete encased or something down there. And we are just a little shallower than we're normally supposed to be, but there was no way to go underneath of this. But we have measurements, there's a whole bunch of pictures that show measurements of how deep this trench is in our files.
And if we're under asphalt, I believe there's actually a different depth.
That's right.
Yes.
So we have to be, I want to say it's like 12 or 18, but if you're in like dirt, it's different.
Yep.
So,
So Ryan, when you dig up and remove junk and asphalt, do you hire out someone to come back in and patch that?
Yes.
Or do you do that?
We do hire it out. We compact the soil back up to the right dimension of how thick the pavement is, and then we usually call into the local pavement companies around town to come back and put the correct pavement, the hot patch, the 2 layers of pavement back in there so it's done right. Yeah, you can go to the last slide. And the last one just covers if, like, we did talk about this a little bit, but if you get something deeper than 4 foot, which typically never happens for us, we have to set it up to where there is a ladder or some sort of a way for the employee to be able to get out of the hole, and they have to be within 25 feet of that. Whether it's a really nice sloped walkway out of the trench or a ladder like they show right here. I didn't have any photos of our home that we could use that had a ladder in there because we never needed to do that, so I had to pull one off the internet and add it to this one. But that's a typical setup. They've sloped the trench sides a little bit on this one, and their soil conditions are such that that is safe enough for what they're doing there. That's all I
it's-
have.
And it doesn't take much. When I was on rescue, we had a farmer putting in drainage pipes out by Deer Run, and they caved in on him, and he survived. Then he didn't want to get in the helicopter to go to the hospital, but yeah, it doesn't take much,
No, it can happen fast.
and
Definitely
it
don't
doesn't
want to.
take a lot of
Dirt's great.
pressure to get stuck.
So you're saying, Ryan, a trench like that could be dangerous?
Oh, deadly. Yes. Yeah, if that guy, if you bent over to do something and then sides caved in, it's over.
Okay.
We need maybe look at the height to his chest and everything.
Yeah, they can still make,
Yeah, it's still-
you can still have trouble
Crushing
breathing.
injuries at your torso.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, gosh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, 'cause even if it caved in on him as he's standing right there, it's still really dangerous because it's cutting off your circulation to your legs and a lot of your body. It's a really,
heavy.
yes, yes.
Dirt is dense, so it's, it feels soft when you walk on it, but it's,
You'd like to hear of people on the beach in the summer, digging holes in the beach and trying to dig tunnels and collapse.
Yeah, there was a kid earlier this spring.
Yeah,
Right, did that.
Grand Haven or Holland,
Right,
wasn't it?
around, yeah.
Because the lake levels are so high and it had the dunes really steep because it's washed them away so
And they
much.
managed to get him out, but his mom was just, I didn't expect he was in the water, what kind of danger was there gonna be? And he was digging in the sand and it collapsed out, so.
Yep.
we don't want to go outside in the sun.
it's not worth it. I'm a TV guy anyway.
Yeah, it's safer.
Okay. Is that it?
All good.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Very cool.
Thanks for the board cooperating and switching up a little bit. I just didn't want to have an emergency and have to have Ron leave. So, but you can still stay, you can still stay through the whole meeting now.
I might just to see how it goes.
Okay.
You can leave if you want, but just to stay for the GIS because you're part of it. You're actually
Keep remember, man.
We good to go on? All right, last action item, GIS proposals. You may remember earlier this year in the springtime, we approved going forward with Esri for our GIS platform. And that cost, I think, was right around like the $7,800 mark. Since that time, our internal team, and that team is Ron, Ryan, Casey, Julie, Megan, and I, have had many, many meetings discussing how we proceed forward. This is a monumental, large project that just can't be done here in a couple weeks. So we want to make sure we're thinking about this from a 360 approach, including, I'll just say it, identifying, for example, any lines that we may have on city property that we want to obtain easements for. Having an inventory of all of the different pole attachments on our system that aren't ours, related to AT&T specifically when we renegotiate the 1927 agreement that's set to expire next July. What do we or don't we want to identify on every single pole, etc. So we've gone through this. You see Ron and Ryan have staged some equipment, and we've checked off many boxes. But the biggest thing we've learned, and I don't think we necessarily anticipated the challenge, was taking our current maps that GRP Engineering has developed over the years for us, and they're currently in the Windmill model software / system, taking those and converting those to usable GIS Esri maps. Based on many conversations we've had with other utilities and just researching and learning more about this ourselves, this is something that takes significant expertise and time, and it's also a one-time event. Something that we really do not have the capability to do in-house, and it's something that we've just learned about over the last 3 months. So what we've sought to do is identify different contractors or vendors who can assist us with taking our GRP, what did you not go, Tina? Apologize. Identify vendors who can assist us with this one-time conversion data dump, so we don't have to re-identify all these assets in the field for the first time. A lot of our circuits, poles, substations, etc., even transformers, GRP already has in this Windmill map. Those can ultimately be converted to the GIS platform, and then we can just move them or slightly edit them to the right location right on a desktop computer, and then go out to the field for any things that haven't been identified or any underground that GRP doesn't have. So what you have before you are 3 proposals. The apples to apples proposals, and I use that word loosely, are GRP and Power Systems Engineering. PSE is Esri's go-to trusted third party for the conversion of utilities maps. And you'll see there's 2 phases, and the first phase is importing and converting our current Windmill / GRP model into Esri's GIS Enterprise platform. The second phase would be integrating DAFRON, and DAFRON is now purchased by Millsoft, so when I say DAFRON or Millsoft, they're equivalent. Integrating DAFRON / Millsoft with Esri's GIS system for customer account information, work order management, etc., and making sure that Esri's platform, where we'll be housing and editing our maps, we can export that map back to Windmill, because GRP will continue using Windmill maps for any further or future engineering studies, projects, etc. So what you have before you is PSE's approach, and as you can see on page 3, that initial conversion comes at a price of $32,000, and the integration to DAFRON is proposed at a range of $10,000 to $25,000, not to exceed $25,000. I had a phone conversation with them, based on the ease or the complexity of actually doing that integration with DAFRON. They haven't done any integration with DAFRON specifically, so they didn't know how complex or easy that would be. There's some unknowns here, ongoing support, what that would be with PSE. There would also need to be a SQL server, which I did confirm today we purchased with our AMI platform, so that would not be an added cost, as well as additional hardware, specifically a server. So that's PSE's proposal. Take our GRP maps, dump them into Esri, and then make sure we integrate DAFRA and have the ability to export those maps back to Windmill for GRP. GRP provided us a proposal that does not include the integration with DAFRA. They just don't have that expertise, but they could help us with taking the Windmill maps, dumping them to Esri, and then creating that export. And you see that total cost for both of those things is just under $23,000. These are, GRP, as you all know, is our preferred and trusted vendor. We use them for all of our system studies, engineering of our projects. PSE is Esri's preferred and trusted vendor. There are other companies and vendors who could give us similar quotes to what GRP and PSE has proposed, but we decided to go with Esri and our preferred vendor for this type of quote. The third proposal is a little bit different, and it's utilizing MillSoft/DAFRA. MillSoft actually has a robust GIS platform of their own that utilizes Esri. We still would need Esri's license that we've already purchased. That money would not be purchased in vain. You'll actually see in their note on the first page, note Esri products are required but not included. So the Esri license we've purchased is needed. What makes MillSoft unique is that they have just purchased DAFRA. And coincidentally, MillSoft uses Windmill mapping, or they are Windmill maps. So I use those terms interchangeably again. So coincidentally, GRP uses Windmill map. MillSoft essentially is or produces Windmill map. So the import-export, if we went with the MillSoft solution, would be extremely easy, to the point of everything they do can be, by the click of a button, downloaded or sent to GRP for their engineering calculations, studies, projects, etc. So from that standpoint, it would be extremely easy to integrate. In addition, because MillSoft just purchased DAFRA, the customer accounting information, names, addresses, telephone number, if somebody's a critical account or not, if there's any special needs for a customer, load data, billing information, transformer information. That integration has already been set up and confirmed this week between MillSoft and DAFRA. So instead of worrying about what PSE would be charging between $10,000 and $25,000 for, and there would be this ongoing customization as MillSoft changes or as Esri changes, you're going to have to make sure that everything is talking back and forth. There would not be that concern. MillSoft also has a connectivity model we would get when purchasing MillSoft solution. Right now in Esri, our maps would be dumped, but you can build out a project or say something's built in a certain way, and it doesn't have to be electrically correct. It won't identify if what you're building can actually physically happen in the field. Whereas MillSoft has smart logic within their solution, and they'll actually identify, no, you can't hook this up here. It's electrically not possible. So when we engineer or plan our own small jobs, it's almost like a foolproof system where Casey or Ryan can get on there and plan a job, and it'll tell you, or almost be dummy proof, make sure we can't build it wrong. MillSoft's conversion is $25,000, and to go with their solution is, no, I apologize. MillSoft's initial price is $25,000 for that conversion, but they're giving us a 30% discount down to $17,500. So it's the cheapest conversion, and then to purchase this connectivity type of platform that sits on top of Esri would be an additional one-time $10,000 cost for $27,500. The entire GIS team met earlier this week because we finally received PSE's proposal late in the week, last week, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday, we didn't have a chance to discuss. Yeah, I think Ron is off Thursday, Friday, and all the guys are working 410s, but we had a chance to talk earlier this week, talk the pros and the cons of everything, and our recommendation is to go with Millsoft. Kind of, some of our concerns were, well, Esri changes and they have a lot of R&D, they're constantly upgrading and coming out with new products. Will Millsoft be able to keep up? Or are we going to be pigeonholed, or is Millsoft in a silo? Talked with Millsoft this morning, actually. They are a platinum partner with Esri, and they, over Millsoft's entire history, have always stayed one version behind Esri. And they actually get the new release of Esri software ahead of time before the public, so they can start updating their solution, and they're always one version behind Esri. Another concern was about the integration with DAFRA. We didn't know if that happened yet or what would need to happen. That's already taken place. Another concern was the SQL Server and the hardware. The SQL Server we found out today we have, so there's no additional cost for that. We will need a server, but as I'll touch on later, Core HiCom and Adorio Technologies, they're working on a business continuity disaster response plan for us that involves the purchasing of 2 new servers where they'll be partitioned off into virtual servers, and we'll be able to put all of our Eaton Cooper, our internal network / database, potentially things like SCADA and GIS and the future OMS platform, all on one physical machine, so that's not a concern. There is a 20% reoccurring support cost, and that is only on the $10,000 charge, so there would be $2,000 annually, and this is really how software companies continue to pay for their employees and any questions or bugs that come up. So I'll open the floor to the board. I'd also like to engage Casey, Ryan, Ron, Megan. Do you have any comments? We've probably had a half a dozen meetings now, and we've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. I know Casey's probably spent the most time with the conversion process, but we have determined it. I mean, as you can see, they're charging a lot per hour, I'm sure, but I mean, these are experts who do it day in or day out, and it's going to take them multiple weeks, if not a couple months, to go through the whole conversion for us, and we just don't have the time or internal staff knowledge to do that one-time conversion.
I'll start out. Has any of these companies sent you references, or I guess, we're always looking at cost and different things as we should, but I guess my question is, so who is Millsoft's clients? Do they have a Zealand? Do they have a Grand Haven? Whatever? And what does that client say about Millsoft or PSE or GR? I mean, we've used GRP for many things, so I'm not so concerned about that. But I am concerned. I guess I'd like to know what other utilities say about these companies as just going. And I'm not saying that you're going blindly, but just because I know that Casey and everybody's done a lot of their research on it, but I guess I'd be interested in what some of other utilities say about these companies. What kind of response have they had? Are they, when there's a question that pops up, are they quick to answer that, to get back with? And again, I don't see, and maybe you've had those conversations.
Somewhat. Julie, our office manager, did go down to the Millsoft user group meeting when I was in the APPA conference and was incredibly impressed. Millsoft is I don't know if the word giant is correct, but they're a very large player in the industry and extremely customer service oriented. I don't know if Megan's seen that yet, but Julie has noticed that they are very customer focused. I don't know of any specific utility in the MPPA using Millsoft for GIS. I know that there's people that use Empower and Futura, and there's been mixed reviews with them. Specifically, I've only heard good things. Julie had very positive things to say, but it's just very unique that there's not many DAFRON customers of the 40 munis in Michigan. We're one. It just so happened that there's this, I would call it rare competitive advantage that Millsoft has in the integration piece that caused us to go or recommend them. PSE, don't really know anything other than that Esri is by far the biggest player in the GIS space, more than 80% of the market worldwide, and this is their preferred group to do this. Maybe I'm a little bit too trusting, but with a Goliath like that, I mean, they've clearly done things right, and they're not gonna steer us in the wrong direction, so that's why we went with them when they said this was their preferred vendor.
Are we trailblazing a little bit, sorry, Jeff, are we trailblazing a little bit as far as like, how in depth we're going with this mapping? Like, are we?
We're doing the basics.
Oh, we are?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this
I
is-
mean, I think Megan and Casey, we're starting off at like the letter A.
Are other munis at like letter D? for
Yeah.
example? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're playing catch up, we're not necessarily saying, but, okay, that helps. Just to get a gauge.
Yeah, now, you'll find many other small utilities like us don't have GIS, but I would dare say if you look at other platinum or diamond or gold utilities that are in the RP3 program, I would say for our category, we're probably the minority that we don't have GIS. Tom, I don't know what you or don't see, but
Most utilities are having GIS now, and we are behind on that. I mean, we've been playing catch-up for years, and now that we're getting up there, there's just more to do, and Steve's on top of having us do more.
I didn't know that, okay.
yeah, I would definitely say, I mean, all of our maps, I think I mentioned, we get printed off paper copies once every year or two. If we construct a job, we're scribbling it on there, after a while sending it to Michael to update. Sometimes there's only one marked up copy, you don't know what truck that is. I mean, I think Ryan, they have a pretty good handle on it. I don't want to make it seem like complete chaos, but yeah, we're in the dark ages
Okay.
with our mapping.
Is the process to, let's say that they do a new development, and we're already on board, we've got this implemented. Is the process to add more map to it hard to do? What's your, what's the easiest, have you walked through that process to say, okay, this is a new development, we're gonna add to our map?
We can do that in-house now, and we would be trained and have
Is
the
it by
tools
that
to do
thing
that.
that you were showing?
The locator, no,
Yeah.
you'd be more with the Trimble unit that's sitting around the corner over here.
Yeah,
And the app that's integrated with that into the iPads and everything through the iOS systems. But it should be, we'd be able to do field updates instantaneous.
okay.
And when we're there, as long as we have that Trimble with us, we can get the coordinates for it, it would be instantaneous, the uploads would.
So that would be your system, you're taking your information, added to your system, and is there like an overnight download, or, I'm just trying to figure out what your process will be for.
Well, it happens right
I was gonna say, it happens right through the cloud, if I remember correctly.
It's right
Yeah,
then.
it's
That's
instantaneous through the
amazing.
cloud.
Okay.
I think it's all cloud-based.
This might be a stupid question, but
What's the cloud?
no. It's a cloud. So with this, what's the purpose, what's the advantage of having this in the field? So I mean, like, so what's it gonna mean to our linemen? What's it gonna mean to low light power, of having this whole system?
Well, for underground especially, on a new development like what we just built at Harvest Meadows, when all the trenches are open, we could have took this unit down through there and geolocated right exactly where those pipes are. Later on, he goes back to do a locate request, he could refer back to that and get exact. I mean, you can use that way, and you can zero right in on a specific pole or secondary cabinet or a secondary vault that's in a sidewalk that you might not necessarily be able to find because the sidewalk's buried in snow. I mean, it's pretty valuable.
Or things
It's
are
gonna-
buried in landscaping in the
Yeah.
yard, even though they don't pay
Yeah.
attention to the fact that it shouldn't be there. But I think one of the other key things too, correct me if I'm wrong, but once we go out and we start doing the geolocating on the pole system and we do the inventory on the pole, then the guy should be able to pull that location up on their phone and be able to tell what transformer they have, how it's fused, what's gonna be in their way, and how many houses are being fed. So if we've got a 25 kVA and it's fused at, 10 amps or whatever, we know it's feeding 4 houses, they're gonna know that before they get to the job site, or at least they'll have the ability to know that before they get there. So they'll get a better understanding of what they're gonna have to take with them when they go, what the voltage is on that line and the transformer, the size and everything, so it's gonna, realistically, it could cut down on multiple trips back and forth to get materials. So it would be a time-saving effort. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's.
No, 100%.
That's the plan.
And even in the back end, you're in the office, you can do queries, and they did them pretty fast in the demo of how many 40-foot poles are on your system. So like just, if somebody calls Megan or any customer service person could look something up and answer questions right then and there. If something's overhead or underground or voltage or transformer, answer those type of questions. In addition, in the future, an OMS system, outage management system, can be layered on top of this. And yeah, we get emails now, but we could have one of those maps, an outage map like Consumers does, but also we'd have predictive analysis on our end that would use all of our information within the GIS system, saying, okay, based on the outage, it was likely originated here, this fuse, this size, and the guys would already know because of the information that's already in the GIS, what they'd have to go do in the field.
Is that due to the integration with the windmill modeling, that it can do that predictive? Because windmill is the one that models your system, right? Like the,
Windmill is what,
No, man.
yep, is what GRP uses to create the models and engineering studies. Casey, you might be able to, you work on GRP.
because windmill map has been the graph, or the geographic application that integrates with that from Millsoft, right?
Yeah, so think of like, it's kind of, maybe not exactly right, but think of like Esri as kind of like the motherboard on your computer, and think of Millsoft as like the program on the computer, right? So you need Esri there first to put Millsoft on top of it. Millsoft has all the functionality, so that we can use all the information in Esri like for our application. It's kind of a good way to think about it.
So Esri is just the data, right, the map data, so it's the locations
Yes.
of everything and relative to everything else that's included in map layers, and then, so then windmill map, I guess, what does that do? That just lets you view the Esri data?
Yeah, but it kind of represents it in a way that's effective and useful for us. Awesome examples of this would be like, let's say we have maintenance on a piece of equipment, replacing a pole, transformer. We can just click on, okay, here's the transformer, and it will already know where those conductors lead from there, what other transformers are connected to it, and then what meters, services are fed from those transformers. So you can actually build this table, spreadsheet, within minutes of just saying, I want to replace one of the step-down transformers. All your customers that'll be affected, their addresses,
Mailing
meter
list.
numbers, yeah, mailing list. Also another really neat thing with this connectivity model is you can say, okay, show me, so we're gonna have all these